What happens when the person everyone points to as proof it's possible turns out to be hiding something, and it all comes crashing down in public? I'm asking because stories like Obinwanne Okeke don't just fade away, they linger. They make you question things you thought were solid. Think about it this way. You build a name, awards, recognition, that clean image everyone admires. People look at you and think, that's the blueprint. But here is what I mean. What if that same image is the very thing that starts to crack? Not all at once, slowly, quietly, until one day it's not whispers anymore, it's headlines. And the real question is, was it ever what it seemed? Before we continue, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Okay, let's proceed. So before we go any further, I need to ground this properly. We're talking about the case of Obinwanne Okeke, often called Invictus Obi. This story connects Nigeria and the United States, and really came into public focus around 2019. Now here's a bit more context, because it matters. Okeke wasn't just some random name online. He was known in business circles, showed up on lists like Forbes Africa's 30 Under 30, and built a reputation as a young, successful entrepreneur. The kind of story people shared for motivation. The kind people pointed to and said, "See, it's possible." But here is what I mean. That same image is exactly why this case hit so hard. When everything unfolded, it wasn't just about one person anymore. It raised bigger questions about trust, perception, and how easy it is to believe what looks polished on the surface. Now, just to be clear, this video discusses a real criminal case for educational and documentary purposes. I'm not here to hype anything or turn it into entertainment for the wrong reasons. The goal is simple: to understand what happened, step by step, and why it still gets talked about today. All right, now that we've set the ground, let's get into it. All right, now let's slow this down and look at the person before everything changed. Obinwanne Okeke was born and raised in Nigeria, growing up in a regular environment, not some extreme story of struggle or privilege, just normal. School, expectations, family structure around him, the kind of upbringing a lot of people watching this can relate to. Here's what I mean. Nothing about his early life screamed, "This will end badly." If anything, it looked like the opposite. As a young guy, he leaned into education and business early. He later moved to the United States for further studies, attending Monmouth University. And this part matters because it shows direction, focus. He wasn't drifting. People who crossed paths with him back then often described someone driven, ambitious, but in a way that felt organized. He cared about image too, clean, put together, intentional about how he showed up. And then came the version of him most people saw online. He built a business identity around investment and entrepreneurship. The name Invictus Obi started gaining attention. Social media played a role. Conferences, networking spaces, photos with other young professionals. It looked like momentum. Think about it this way. If you opened your phone back then, you'd see someone living the life many people were chasing. Travel, suits, meetings, a sense of progress. He even made it onto Forbes Africa's 30 Under 30 list. And that's not small. That kind of recognition changes how people treat you. It opens doors. It makes others trust you faster. Now let's talk about routine, because that's where real life sits. His days, from what's publicly known, were structured around business communication. Emails, deals, conversations with partners and clients. A lot of time online. A lot of time maintaining relationships that were tied to money, opportunity, and growth. He wasn't isolated. He had connections, associates, people who saw him as reliable, or at least capable. That matters because trust is built in small, everyday interactions, not big moments. And then there are the people on the other side of those interactions. Before anything became public, there were individuals and organizations who believed they were dealing with a legitimate businessman. People who thought they were entering normal financial agreements. That's important to say clearly, because long before headlines, there were real people making decisions based on trust. No alarms, no obvious warning signs. That's the uncomfortable part of this story. It didn't look dangerous, it looked successful. And honestly, that's why it pulled so many people in. So when you hear what comes next, don't picture something chaotic from the start. Picture something steady, controlled, almost convincing, because that's exactly what it was. Now this is where everything starts to shift. Because behind that clean image, authorities say something very different was happening. According to prosecutors in the United States, Obinwanne Okeke was involved in a series of online financial fraud schemes, often described as business email compromise. Here is what I mean. This type of fraud doesn't look dramatic on the surface. It's built on trust and timing. Emails that appear legitimate, conversations that feel normal. Then, money gets redirected without the victim realizing it. Authorities say he and others used compromised or impersonated email accounts to pose as company executives or trusted partners. From there, they would send instructions to transfer funds to accounts they controlled. Think about it this way. If you're a finance officer at a company and you receive what looks like a routine payment request from your boss or a known partner, you don't immediately assume fraud. You process it. That's how this works. One of the key cases involved a UK-based company where funds were redirected during what appeared to be a normal business transaction. That single incident alone accounted for millions of dollars in losses. In total, US authorities linked him to attempted and successful transactions worth over $11 million, with several million dollars actually transferred. And when law enforcement moved in around 2019, they didn't just look at emails, they looked at assets. Reports show that properties, luxury items, and large sums of money connected to him were seized or forfeited as part of the case. That included high-end purchases and financial accounts tied to the proceeds of the fraud. Now, let me be clear about the outcome. In 2020, Okeke pleaded guilty in a US federal court to fraud-related charges. He was later sentenced to a prison term, and the court ordered forfeiture and restitution tied to the funds involved. No drama, no exaggeration, just a pattern built over time, uncovered through investigation. And the impact? Real companies lost money. Real people made decisions based on information they believed was genuine. That's the part that stays with you. Because this wasn't random, it was structured, deliberate, and for a long time, it worked. And honestly, that's what makes this case stick with people even years later. Not because it was loud or chaotic, but because it showed how far image, trust, and perception can carry someone before the truth finally catches up. Think about it this way. A lot of people saw Obinwanne Okeke as proof that success had arrived. Young, connected, respected. Then the entire story shifted almost overnight. And maybe that's the biggest lesson here. Not everything polished is real. And sometimes, the stories that look the most inspiring on the surface deserve a second look underneath. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.